This meeting to order. And I can see we have a quorum. And I would like to see if we can get an approval of this agenda.
Thank you. Madam President, I move to accept the revised agenda that has been provided.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. All in favor with a show of hands. Okay. We're going to begin tonight with receiving of information. The first will be from Carver High School's Class of 70 Alumni Association with a donation.
Madam Superintendent, Madam Superintendent, board members, especially our classmate, Claudia Thomas Mitchell, we are the representatives of the class of 1970. Would you stand, please? There's some of our officers, our planning committee for our 50th reunion, canceled by COVID. Okay. We are here this evening to commemorate the culmination of our combined efforts and to share part of our legacy as the class of 1970. With the cancellation of our 50th reunion celebration due to COVID-19, it is our pleasure to share as alumni of this prestigious Institute of Learning a monetary gift of $17,628.72. God bless the supporters of public education, and may God bless our children as they are our future. Thank you on behalf of the class of 1970, George Washington Carver. Thank you.
On behalf of the library, I want to thank you all for the donation. It'll be well spent. Thank you.
Maybe 3 more big steps over this way, please. Thank you so much. You all look so wonderful tonight. Thank you. Please. Madam President, if you'll come up a little bit, Dr. Very good. Oh, thank you. Oh. Still in our board meeting. I'm sorry about that. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
All right, everybody ready? Big smiles.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As everybody's moving back, I just want to say thank you to class of 1970. We came up through a tumultuous time, just like class of 2020. But they went through COVID. We were the first class for desegregation. There were all kinds of things going on. But the teachers, the principal, and the community supported us. And that's what we want to do for our children, to support them in every way. They gave us pride. Once a Wolverine, always a Wolverine.
Okay, our next information is the renaming school committee update, and we have committee members here.
Good evening to our superintendent and all of our board members. We come to address you and give you an overview of the Montgomery Public School Renaming Committee, which came forth with President Wills. We met first April the 6th, 2021 at Park Crossing High School. She expressed that we were only coming together to deal with about 9,000 submissions and to pass that on from a process that we will work as the committee together in reference to the renaming of 3 high schools, Sidney Lanier, Robert E. Lee, and Jefferson Davis. As we started meeting, we noticed there were a few problems that arose, and we brought these to President Wills' attention. They were some members' names that were on the paper as members. Though we called them, they were unable to come. Some stated they did tell them they would take part of this process, but for various reasons that arose in the midst, they could not attend. This is about April going into May of 2021. The high school representatives' names that were on there, one of them was a graduate. At this particular time, the high school graduates and their parents and anyone in high school, mine was on graduation, end of the school year, and their summer vacation time. We met with President Will and brought this to her attention, letting her know that in the midst, a subcommittee had came together within this committee and started working on the 9,000 submissions, knowing that if any concerns or question that would come up, we would have to address it later on because, as we stated, the committee was not fully intact. It was around June the 24th. We came to the understanding to put everything on a hold until the committee would be intact. August the 31st, 2021, the committee was fully intact. From that point up until now, there's about a process where we're down to about 60 names, and we're working to see how we will come forth and making recommendation upon the 3 high school names that were presented to us. Members of this committee are some people from our community, some alumnus from the schools, and various other professionals and other people in the community. We know also that with the public process that we're dealing with, inclusion was made also by some members of the renaming committee, meaning that they submitted names as well. At this particular time, we're still working to move forward from these 60 names. We may have to call our president back in to make sure we're doing things in the appropriate manner. That's basically where we are.
Reverend Gilchrist, your work is a difficult task, and we are grateful for you and the committee who have been working so hard to make this a reality. I feel like we're moving in that right direction and should have names in short order. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am, we should. Main thing we're dealing with is integrity, and we're dealing with transparency. We're working from an interpersonal relationship standpoint of learning one another as well. And our main concern, we want to get down to the names. Our main concern, as it is for Montgomery, is the education for our students their safety, also thanking God for you and what you're doing, as well as the education profession. So we should be making advancements soon.
Okay, does anyone have questions?
Reverend Gilchrist, how are you?
I'm great, ma'am. How you feeling?
Just fine. I would just thank you for the process that the committee has gone through thus far.
Yes,
and my only question of the committee is, do you have a timeline for progress in the future?
We hope to come forth, I would say within the first of the year, that may be the first quarter, if everything proceeds on. We're down to about 60 names. So if we can come together and move on from this, we can deal with it. And it shouldn't be much time held up, but I have to deal with the other 16 or 17 members as well.
Yes, and I guess the committee chair, is there a target of names that we're trying to drill down to?
The committee has had full access. I have none. I'm not actually on the committee.
Okay, I guess what I want to say, he started with a certain number of suggestions and went into committee and, narrowed those down. I guess I need to know, is there a certain number or target that we're trying to narrow down to before the committee relinquishes everything to the board?
One thing I can tell you from this standpoint here is that we know that our job is not to try to rename the schools.
Correct.
We're only working to pass the information on to the board, and it's your job whichever way you go from there. Some of the other things we're facing with the procedure we're going on, sometimes like just the school system, they had to close down from COVID. We called the principal of the high school, the situation going with the guns and some things, and other individuals, they've had death from COVID and other matters. So we're trying to keep it mainstream in line and trying to progress doing this the best we can.
I understand. The only thing that I was saying is there a target number that we're getting, that we're trying to reach before we turn it over to
I think it's the top 10.
the top 10. Okay. That's what I.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think 10 names would be wonderful.
Okay. 10. Thank you.
Madam President, I have a comment. Reverend Gilchrist, first of all, I didn't know that was you down there. I couldn't see because of the lights.
Okay.
But I wanted to ask, because I get various things stated.
Yes, ma'am.
And I look to you, the one person on the committee that it's not that I don't know everybody, I don't, but I feel like I know you and I've seen you in action. And I appreciate what you have done to keep the transparency. I appreciate you coming to the board and saying that based on the original committee, there are various members not shown up, to include our own board member that started this entire thing, which bothers me somewhat, and I'm concerned about it. But, we'll leave that alone. I did want the public to know that. The other thing is I'm also hearing from parents that it's gotten back to the schools where the schools are getting certain names to choose from and that they chose such and such. I mean, and these are parents I don't know that are saying, Dr. Keith, is this true? So I'm asking you, have y'all actually gotten some of the names back to these schools for the kids to see?
We, within this committee, we had a subcommittee, 2 individuals working with the high school representative. We're trying to be respectful because they are students. We're also trying to deal with them in the appropriate manner of part of privacy. And when we do deal with them, we make sure either we go through the principal or their parents in passing on the information or trying to be there. But from the best my understanding, Ms. Keith, everything has been moving on, and we are waiting for just some other diagram of paperwork. That's why I said we may call our president back in. But thus far, we have had full representation from all 3 high school representatives at this time.
And understand, I I have, have turned this over to God, and if this is what the community wants,
Yes,
hey, I'm all for it. Some of the names that I'm hearing are quite impressive. But there's a couple concerns that I do want to just put out, so when you go back,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't want it to turn political, because some of the names that keep resurfacing is some of the power people in there are related to somebody political, and or there are a parent liaison at one of the schools. And when a parent liaison comes in and says 100% of the school wants this, and I've been at one of your meetings, and then talked to some of these students, there's not 100% anything.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just going to tell you, concern is there.
Yes, ma'am.
I know me, my eyes and ears are wide open. So if you take that back to the committee, I'm one that if I had been in charge of it, I wouldn't have missed one meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Keith, we're trying to work where we're not doing this on the basis of race or religion or in our sector here, trying to counteract anything from a Confederate or with the civil rights part. And we're just trying to deal with it in the appropriate manner. And I share the same concerns and value as you do.
And I know you do. You've told me that, and I believe you and trust you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Reverend Gilchrist, again, thank you. Your work is a difficult task, and you are taking it and doing it.
Yes.
And we'll look forward to hearing from you in the first quarter.
Yes, ma'am. To you, our superintendent, the entire board, God bless you all. And I want to thank our co-chair that is with me and each and every member that's taken part of this. And I pray that we've answered everything in a respectable manner. God bless each and every last one of you. Thank you,
sir. Okay. Next, we have information from Volkert. Mr. Slater's here tonight, I think.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Moore. I've got a little PowerPoint that should show just a recap of where we've been over the past couple of months on the work that we've done. Excuse me. We've turned over the facility report and the assessment report to you, and we've had our community meetings. We've gathered input from the community, and we've received the SOQs, the statements of qualifications from the architects, and conducting meetings with directors and other admin. In our short-term look ahead, we plan to bring the list of projects, prioritized list of projects to you with budgets during the month of January for your consideration and approval. And from there, we'll start with architect selection and the architect's agreements, have them in the works, and be able to turn surveyors loose and finalize the program for each of the projects to make sure all the spaces are as we need them to be. And start with land acquisitions if required. If you could please advance 3 slides. I'm bringing you these photos right here for some recent renovation projects that we've done. This is, believe it or not, the same school. This is the before and after of, used to be Irwin High School in Center Point, which is not unlike Bear and maybe Highland Gardens and several of your other schools that were built back in the 50s. You can tell that it's a major transformation at the building. Next slide, please. This is the exact same corridor. It's really a major change in how that corridor looks. You can, if you look close enough, you can see the same crack across the terrazzo floor there. We closed up the doors and changed that shape of that room there behind it right there, and changed the tile out on the floors, and just made a world of difference in the way that school looks. Next slide, please. This is a before and after of classroom. Classroom on the left there is very similar to a lot of your schools now, with the window units and the poor lighting and such as it is right now. And this is on the right is the new and dressed up version. Next slide, please. This is an exterior view just of the back of the building, and then another interior classroom. Okay, next slide. These are a couple of elementary school libraries. The fundamental space of them are the exact same, is for the exact same size school. It's just the way one architect versus another used their palette and made it a little bit different. It's the same amenities, they're just different colors. These two gymnasiums are the exact same size, same amenities in it. They've got the plastic sport court floor. One's just colored that make it look like wood, and the other's got different colors to it. These are two different cafeterias, both for 250 students for each lunch wave. It's just to show how different colors make the same space look completely different. But that way, you know, each of the new schools would have the exact same amenity in it from one spot into the next. These are, the one on the left is a music classroom with sound panels to help dampen the noise or dampen the music. And the other one is actually part of the tornado safe room. Those windows there are designed to withstand 250 mile an hour 2x4 hitting. Okay. Have any questions?
Doesn't look like it. These photos are amazing.
Thank you.
So we'll look forward to hearing from you again in January.
Thank you. I look forward to it as well.
Thank you. Okay, next up, Ms. Katrina Jackson, Jigsaw Learning contract.
Good evening, Superintendent Moore, Madam President, and distinguished board members. You have before you a contract proposal for Teach Town, a companion business with Jigsaw Learning, LLC. Teach Town's modified core curriculum is for students with moderate to severe disabilities. The curriculum will be utilized for the K2, 3, 5, and 6, 8 self-contained special needs classrooms throughout the district. This curriculum is aligned with the extended standards for the Alabama Alternate Assessment. Currently, the self-contained teachers are tasked with modifying the general education curriculum to meet the needs of their students, which is incredibly time-consuming. The teachers at Children's Center have been piloting this curriculum for a few months and have found it to be very beneficial to the students. The pro forma analysis indicates this contract value to be approximately $152,034.41 to be funded through the ARPT IDEA Part B. Are there questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, facilities update.
Good evening, Ms. Will, Dr. Moore, members of the board. You can see we have several items to go through, and we'll do that as quickly as possible. Please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. You'll see we've had the Volkert update. We'll tell you too, I got a chance to tour a couple of their facilities that they completed, a couple of new facilities and a renovated facility, and I'm excited that the opportunity that we're going to be able to bring to our schools here in Montgomery and really put our students and, you know, what Mr. Watts was talking about at some of those public community meetings with clean, safe, and productive environments for our students. So really excited about that and eager to get going, and as well as you. And I know we've been in the process and want to do that the right way and make sure we put our students and set our school system in the right path for many years to come. As you'll see, there we have the T.S. Morris and South Lawn middle roof. That bid opening is going to be this Thursday. The Katoma lunchroom roof, that was one that we had to do a emergency roof declaration on. We had some issues over there in the lunchroom part, and we've isolated that area and don't have anyone in that area. And we're operating in our classrooms like we have been all year as far as feeding, keeping that process and the kitchen area safe to go into. But we're going to get that rectified as quickly as possible. The architects, I spoke with them today on the process of that. We're stabilizing the current roof. We'll make our repairs, and then we'll put back the drop ceiling that's in there and get them back in there as quickly as possible and safely as possible. The Dozier and Brubaker primary and intermediate mansard roof. The mansard roof is what you see from the street, that roof or that shingled area that faces you. It does present some things as far as the soffit that's underneath to secure in some of those areas. So we're getting those done as quickly as possible with that, using ETF funding for those. The Brubaker Complex HVAC change order, that is, we had a $50,000 allowance in that project. The change order comes because we're going to get back money on this change order, but some of it had to go when we had the delay on the chiller. They had to do some more plumbing and electrical work to hook up the temporary chiller, the one that was brought on site. So there was a little bit of a cost with that. But we will be getting money back from that change order in total. The Bellinger Hill roof over is completed. The BTW site visitor, I know we were working on we were working on December. Again, we plan on trying to get you guys out there as soon as possible. I feel that as we come back in the beginning of the year, we can look at a future date with that and get you out there. I'd like to get some of that rough construction out of the way, and they're very close to getting that out of there so that we can start getting on the finer details of things where you can walk through there a little bit safer on those areas, but working on that as well. The contract that you have before you tonight on the central office consolidation, that is again PSCA funding, and that will consolidate 5 locations down into that one area right there, so it'll be much easier for us to maintain. Each of those 5 locations have a numerous amount of deferred maintenance, so it's going to save us on that as well. And we've been talking about it for months, but we're really excited to get started on that project and get our people in good areas as well with that. And that's some PSCA funding as well. The Highland Gardens parking lot, you see the pictures there. That's part of our city MOU that we have with them to help us repave all of our parking lots. That's one that they've done. They also took down a large hackberry tree in the middle of that. So they're doing some other things as well besides just paving, but cleaning up those areas and getting them taken care of as well. And then we have several of the flooring projects. I listed those for you with what we did over the Thanksgiving area or time frame, what's going to be completed during this Christmas holiday, and then what we're looking forward to in spring break. And then we'll have, of course, more in the summertime, but this will get us very close to removing the carpet that's in the schools. And we're working with the principals as well to kind of take care of some areas that they would like to see done in their buildings as well. So we're working on those things as quickly as possible and trying to work around things as much as we can, because it's kind of a hassle to, especially when you do a main office area, moving that stuff out. Logistics helps us out tremendously with that, and the schools do what they can as well. So that's our update for tonight. You have questions? Yes, ma'am. Not yet. That is what they want to do next, and they really want to do that one for theirs with a community center as well. And I know part of the capital plan has some ideas for Capitol Heights as well that we went over with Volkert. So I think we want to do some stuff there. We just want to make sure we do the right thing when we get that together. There's some timing stuff that's going on. I know last year I worked heavily on some things like on Lanier to get ready, and then the tax passed, so we kind of backed off of it to get the right capital plan together and make sure we're not, sinking money in something that we're going to totally renovate later on, or whatever it may be. We want to do things once and do it right. So that kind of held that one up a little bit. And the city, they only have one paving crew, so it's really, we have to work with them on their timing of things, but I'm pressing them on them as quick as we can. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, we had our sign company come over there and look at that, and they've got it set up. They're going to be working on getting that taken care of as well. We also have a outside benefactor that has said they're going to pay for that. So as soon as I get a quote from them, but maintenance was over there the next week and has it set up. So we're working on that. Thank you for letting us know about it. We appreciate it.
I had a question, Madam Chair. One of my questions is about the bid process. I wanted to know if you all are still using the board-adopted DBE or minority participation policy for a lot of the bids with the roofing and whatnot.
With the roofing, I mean, we're following the state law on that bid process, and it's who bids on those things. Some of them are so large, like one of the companies that usually does our roofs had to back out on the Jeff Davis roof because it's so large they couldn't get the bonding done right on that to put that in there. So we're utilizing the architect that's been on our roofs for 30 plus years doing that same process. And then of course they are aware of the MBE DBE policy that is in that as well.
And will we be provided like a bid? I know I've asked for this before, and we may still get it. I've not seen it in a while, but a bid tabulation just to show where they are, trying to include our minority and participation, where they're going out looking for those minorities to work with them on certain projects. Will we get that?
Like that advertisement, are you looking?
No, showing, whoever gets the contract, showing that they are actively trying to bring in those minority businesses. So will we?
I don't know that that's like what they put in, like when Amison did BTW. I mean, they have MBE, DBE groups that work on those things. I don't know that there's actually been something like in writing that you give people, or are you looking?
Okay, so here's what
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
looking for. I'm looking, and if I understand our policy correctly, and I think I do, when we put out the RFPs and people put in their paperwork, one of the things that we've asked in that policy is that we definitely encourage companies, because there will be primary companies, even with roofing, to go out and look for minority businesses to partner with. That may not be something that can be done on roofing. I don't know, but I do know what our policy asks for.
It is more difficult because it's usually just a single entity, where like when we're building new, you have a lot more opportunity, like with FF&E, furnitures, fixtures, and equipment.
Okay.
Like with Ophelia.
Okay, so you answered that. So
Yes, ma'am.
The minority business piece, so you said one of the problems that you are seeing is that there are not minority businesses that can handle projects that large. I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding this.
No, I didn't say that there's not minority. I said there's some businesses like the group that has done a lot of our roofs in the recent past. They were not big enough to handle like the Jeff Davis roof, and so they didn't have the bonding capacity. So unless it's a larger, like some of these larger roofs, it takes a larger bonding capacity. And Volkert is working on stuff to try to help with that, with the general contractors taking some of that bonding capacity underneath them, so that smaller companies can get involved with that. But it's more difficult when you're just talking about one entity with a roof to do some of that. You don't have as many opportunities to do smaller parts and pieces of the project like that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Chad, I'm sorry.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have just one comment. Based on the minority policy that we adopted early in the year, we also said that we would receive some reports at certain times. Do you know when we would perhaps receive our first report related to the policy and how we are performing?
As far as like these roofing projects that we're doing?
Just any.
I mean, we really, other than the roofing projects, we're not really doing any bidded work like that's bringing anything in at this point.
I think I understand your question. I'll work with Chad on developing a report as we go into some of these projects to present to the board. We'll work on it.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay, moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. We've got a financial statement report coming up, and Pamela Watkins will present that today for us.
Good evening, Dr. Moore, Madam President, Will, and members of the board. You have before you the financial packet for October of 2021, fiscal year 2022. In that packet includes explanation of financial data from the Chief Financial Officer. We have a snapshot analysis that will give a quick overview of the district's financial standing. Monthly budget percentages, which tells us where we should be percentage-wise as the budget relates, as this month relates to the overall budget. There's a monthly comparative statement of revenues and expenditures for the current year compared to the previous year. Also, there's a statement of cash flow, which shows our cash inflows and outflows and our cash position as of 10/31/2021. There's some visual pie charts that will give you a visual of the current month revenue and expenditures, and then our F exhibits, which are our state reports that are uploaded to the State Department on the state's website. In the explanation of financial data, October 1 represents the first month of our new fiscal year, year 2022. Our overall general fund balance as of 10/31/2021 is approximately $62.3 million. Our total revenues received in the general fund for the month of October, $17.1 million compared to $17.4 million in October of last year. Our total expenditures for October 31 total about $17 million compared to $16.7 million in October of last year. Please note that there's sometimes some timing differences in the recording of expenditures during the various months. We do expect some possible increases for the coming year due to us having a full year of students being in school compared to the last 2 years where there was breakages in time and in-person timing due to COVID. Although the COVID pandemic has been and continues to be very challenging for our district, we still were able to increase our general fund balance. Therefore, we were able to more than exceed the legislative required 1-month fund balance with a little over 3 months of a fund balance currently. We still remain deeply concerned about the loss of revenues due to the district loss of student population. The decline in population directly affects our state foundation funding. There was a decline for this current fiscal year, and we predict there will be a decline next year as far as student population. We still have access to millions of dollars in the federal funding due to the COVID or the CARES Act. And those we are using or projecting that the majority of those funds will be spent for PPE, technology infrastructure and devices, as well as virtual infrastructure and catching up of our students. If you turn to section 2, you will see the snapshot analysis, which will show our beginning fund balance for fiscal year 2021. It'll show our revenues, our expenditures, revenues of 17 as stated, $17.1 million, our expenditures of approximately $17 million, and our ending fund balance of $62.3 million. Our percentages revenue as a percentage of the budget is about 7%, which is a little bit less than the 8.3%, which is what 1/12 would be, or the first month of the 12 months should be about 8.33%, and we're at about 7% of revenues and 7% of the budgeted expenditures. Also, on the snapshot analysis, you'll see our total payroll expenditures compared to October of 2020. You see our local revenue comparisons, which are our ad valorem taxes compared to this fiscal year compared to October of last year, fiscal year 2021. And then you also see our general fund balance analysis, which compares October of 2021 to October of 2020. We had an increase of $27.5 million in our fund balance from last year at this very same time. And the other sections, as I stated, Section 3 has where we should be for the month. Section 4 has our comparative of monthly and annual comparative statement of revenues and expenditures so that you can see how we look this year compared to last year. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have one question. In your report summary, you mentioned that there is a decline in student population. I just wanted to know what is being looked at to make this particular forecast that this will happen by next year.
Well, the decline in enrollment that was used to budget for fiscal year 2022, those were actual numbers. And so we did not feel the complete effect of that this year because the state provided stabilization funds that allowed us to receive the exact same funding that we received last year. And when we presented the budget, or when Mr. Watts presented the budget, we had preliminary numbers that was, I think, the 20-day count. We know now, we knew at that time that enrollment was down. And so when we go to budget for fiscal year 2023, the loss in student population, which will affect our units that we will be given from the state, will have to be addressed during the budget at that time.
And so my second question probably won't relate to you, but just I'll direct it to Dr. Moore. Is there a plan that you all are working on? I know this is all transitional kind of stuff, but just to kind of work on increasing the enrollment so that when we won't have to have a reduced, overcrowded classrooms, because if schools have to close as a result of not having students or whatever. But is there a plan?
Yeah. Well, can you all hear me through the mic? Okay. So what happened is, as they mentioned, the stabilization, they gave us, superintendents lobbied for this so that we could get the exact same funding that we got last year. COVID created a lot of problems. For instance, a lot of kids who would have been in kindergarten that we don't know about because they weren't with us before would have moved up to first grade, but they didn't even show up for kindergarten. So we've got to try to find those kids. So we've been working with our principals on contacting parents to make sure that those kids come to school. We might be faced, it's a good thing and it could be a not so good thing. We may be faced with a deluge of kids who show up now that COVID is kind of under wraps in a way, but not totally. Those kids may show up, and they may show up wanting to be in first grade, but they haven't really been in kindergarten. So that's kind of iffy. We don't know yet where they are, but across the state, thousands of children were just sort of out there, and we don't know where they are. We're hoping that they will come back and that we can entice them. And every principal, we asked them at the time when they were first enrolling between the 20 days to call every parent and remind them that we needed their children to come to school and enroll and become a member. That happened in some cases, but it did not happen to the degree that we wanted it to happen. So that caused us to have a decline in the number of students that we normally would have. We've had a gradual decline, I would say, over the last 5 or 10 years, from what I can see. But COVID really hit us really hard. So when we get ready this summer, we need to start working on getting kids to come back and contacting those parents that we know about.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We've got a nursing coordinator salary scheduled, Ms. Gillis and Dr. Williamson.
Good evening to Board Chair, Dr. Moore, and board members. We're talking to you about the nursing salary as we prepare for Nurse Rogers to transition from her position, and we were reviewing that slot. It was determined that the salary schedule that we were currently using was not going to be effective for us to pull someone for that position. The salary schedule that our nurses are on is a classified schedule, and for that schedule, it begins at a master's degree. As we reviewed our surrounding districts and as we reviewed our people who are in the district who are qualified at a master's level, we have one nurse that has a master's degree, and we've had one nurse to apply since we've had it posted at a master's degree. So we needed to adjust our salary schedule so that we could accommodate those who have a bachelor's of nursing and accommodate the way that the salary schedule has shifted in light of COVID for our nurses and the rate of pay for nurses.
Additionally, the previous salary schedule that our nursing coordinator was on did not account for the degrees that a nurse actually earns. The previous schedule had a master's, an educational specialist, and a doctorate, and that's not what nurses actually earn. They have a bachelor's, a master's, and then their doctorate. They don't actually earn an educational specialist degree. So we wanted to make sure that it was in line with what nurses actually attain as they matriculate and as they progress. Questions for us?
I don't see any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is the timeline for the superintendent's search process. And each of us have received this, this possible timeline, but I wanted to make sure that the public understands where we are with this process. So it's still called a possible timeline. It is what we hope to accomplish. With AASB, the Alabama Association of School Boards, they are our chosen company to help with this search. Each board member has already individually met with the AASB to tell them what we think is most important. There will be an online survey. Again, this is our possible timeline. The online survey should go live on January the 6th through the 21st. We will have community engagement meetings on January the 18th. We will have delivered the engagement results to the board on February the 3rd. In our January meeting, we hope to set the qualifications and salary. We will advertise AASB will advertise the position in the February 9th time frame. Application deadline will be March the 23rd. There will be screening of the applicants and select finalists by AASB in the March 29th time frame. They would deliver finalist lists to this board on April the 5th, conduct interviews, the board would, in the week of April the 11th through the 19th, check references, site visits, and negotiate a contract the weeks of April 20th through May 13th, and have the new superintendent start date as of July the 1st. So this is, again, our possible, probable time frame for this, and we are looking forward to working with AASB to find someone who can hopefully fill the shoes of Dr. Moore. Anybody have questions? It was in the contract.
But it's not in the assembly, is what I was asking. Just
No, it's not in here, but you have it in the, and I can resend it if you'd like.
okay.
Okay. It is tentative, it is possible, it is probable, but it's not set in stone. So we're going to work with it to make sure we get exactly who we need.
I think it's key to know there are some meetings that's going on tomorrow for the board members that were not able to meet with AASB on yesterday. So there may be some changes based on input from the board members for tomorrow.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. Next, we have a review of current bylaws. Dr. Moore?
Okay. Ms. Brown asked for this, so I'm going to yield to her.
So when everything went crazy with COVID, I think that I wasn't on the board at the time, but there were things that were done to keep the business of the board going. And while doing so, focusing on getting the business done, taking care of the way that we need to. I think that we left ourselves open for some mishap, or shall I say, some opportunities for improvement. And a couple of those items are based on how we are doing the board meetings, and our Constitution and bylaws says that we are having meetings twice a month, and we are not, which is a reason for that. And I'm only mentioning this because I think that we need to structure ourselves and conduct the business the way that the bylaws speak. And if there are changes that need to be made to the bylaws, I think that this is the appropriate time for us to address those.
I think one of the things, let me just mention, that during the heavy COVID piece, AASB, the governor, and some others made some exceptions to how governing boards meet. And so, yes, it is in there that the board would meet twice per month. At one point, we went totally to virtual, and then we now have this once per month just because of the gathering piece. I think if the board wants to continue to use what's in the bylaws with the 2 times per month, I think that at this point, safety-wise, you can make that decision about whether or not you're ready to go back to 2 times per month. If you go back to 2 times per month right now, you have to make sure you're consistent with what you go back to. So we couldn't, for instance, if we were doing virtual, we couldn't have some people virtual and some people in person. So it's perfectly fine if you want to go back to the 2 times per month. That is strictly up to you all on the board if that's where you want to go now.
And just for clarity, I am not advocating one way or another. I just want us to make sure that our bylaws will stand up in the event we have to defend them.
So if we wanted to have in an either or twice a month or a combined meeting, it just needs to be reflected in the bylaws. Is that correct?
Yes, we need to make changes, or we need to determine that we're going to go back to the twice a month, and just to make sure that we are being consistent in the application of the bylaws.
Okay.
I was under the impression that because of the COVID pandemic, and we don't have a handle on it yet, we do have a second variant out there with the Omicron, and we're really not sure where that's going. So I would not be in agreement with changing the bylaws at this time, but as an action for us to work in an emergency situation. So if we would add something to the bylaws, it should be adding something to deal with the emergency situation.
And I agree, and that is the piece that's missing. We're just, we had, we had a concern.
Very good.
We addressed the concern, but our paper trail didn't catch up with, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good point, great point.
Dr. Coleman?
Thank you. And she did come to the point that I was about to make, in that we need to go ahead and put the emergency contingency in the bylaws if that's how we're going to operate.
Yeah, I like that too.
And I think I'll let her speak, but I had a couple of other things I wanted to speak on.
Mine's just very short. I agree with going ahead and writing that now just to fit the bylaws. But I was also, maybe we could table it for a work session or something, because I would, if I have something that I would like to, I guess it's the brat in me. It is so hot up here. I feel like the sun is, I'm melting. And I've seen other people up here melt. And I just wish we could either get fans or go back to where we used to be, because it's so hot. Just thought I'd put that in there.
Okay, and as she stated, we might want to do this at another work session, but I did notice in Article 3 regarding terms, it states that the terms are so staggered that only 2 members are voted on every election cycle, and we're going to have 5 members voted on in the upcoming election cycle.
Yeah, I think that happened when this board, and this was pre-me and you, went from 6 to 4-year terms, but nobody ever corrected it in our bylaws. And you're absolutely right.
I have a question. Is that something that we address in our bylaws, or is that something that's done by the election board?
I think the election board has to officially change it, and then your bylaws reflect the change.
Okay. So
I don't think you can, as a board, say we're going to have an election whenever. But once you seek out that information and you say this is what we'd like to do, and it's approved and it's changed, then you reflect that in your bylaws.
So we need to put in a request to the election committee to
Yes, and you have to kind of decide which way you want that to go, because I think somebody will be a little odd at one point, and then it will filter into the way you want it.
One person would have a 2-year term or a 6-year term, yeah.
But so if that's something you want me to check on, I'd do that for you. I can
Thank
look
you.
into that for you.
The next one is editorial, Article 4. The word is statute, and I think that should be statute. And the next one is Article 5. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the one we've already addressed.
Okay, any other recommendations for that, for the, any changes to the bylaws? Okay.
There is one, and I can't tell you what article it is, but I can tell you what it is. I'll have to kind of glance it real quick. But it dealt with the public comments, so if somebody sees what article it is or can't remember, please help me out. We went from those who were wanting to speak before the board that signed up for an agenda item in advance for something that was not on the agenda. We went from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. I'd like for that to go back to 5 minutes. I know I've heard quite a few people who've spoken come to the podium, speak on that they would like to have that time back, and then keeping.
It was 4 minutes.
It was, when I read, it was 3 minutes in here. It was 5. Yeah, it was 5.
It was 5, okay.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Okay.
It is what it is. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Is that it? Okay. Redistricting consultants. I don't know where to start. I know many of us have been to a couple of places to look at proposed redistricting maps. And I would kind of like it to open this up to you ladies as to what your thoughts are at the moment.
Well, I will say that from what I understand, we have had at least 3 consultants attempting to work with us, 2 voluntary, 1 paid. I think at the last meeting we discussed the fact that we were very concerned about the financial obligation for one of those.
Paid is off the table.
Okay.
We have 2 voluntary folks right now.
Okay. Well, I have spoken with both of those, and at the appropriate time, if everybody else is interested or ready or has seen every map that's available to us, you know, I think it's past time that we go ahead and make a vote. But if everyone has not had a chance to see and discuss the maps, then I'd like to hear from the rest of my colleagues.
My understanding when we got on this, I know we tabled it, but we tabled it to go back to it. We were going to listen to our consultants out of respect for all 7 of us. I've gone and seen all 3. I'm very impressed with all 3. So I thought, because they're so close. I mean, seriously, if you look at them, it's like a little bit here and a little bit there. And I thought I think this would take a work session where we sat down and we said, hey, this is what person A had, person B had, and if we use person C, we go to person C with this, and you compromise. I can't think, I mean, it was like $50 an hour. If we could come up with the 2, I mean, we can drop the 3rd one, okay. But I think that a compromise would mean that you compromise with all 3 that we started with, even if it cost us $50. I made the comment that if we can spend $475 on an hour, by God, we can spend $50 on a map guy. That's just how I feel. And from looking at all 3 and talking to some of you that we've met, I think most of us are in agreement. I think to vote, we're a little bit, to vote right now, we haven't had that discussion among us women to go, hey, what do you think? You know, and without that, I don't see how we could make that vote. So that, you know, I agree that here's my understanding, is it doesn't matter, I mean, we can wait. We've already missed the deadline date, which was November 25th, okay? So regardless of that, the 5 that are running on that old map no matter what. So whatever we come up with, you've got to understand, everybody that comes after us, 4 years, 8 years, 10 years, whatever they do, they're going to be looking back at us. And when we say, well, this guy was free, and B was free too, we decided to save $50, somebody's going to go, what happens when you go with the free people? You know, you get what you pay for. If I get what we pay for, we're going to sit around as 7 ladies, and we're going to compromise. And I think we all can do that. We're adults. We're 7 ladies that this community elected to be here because they knew that we could sit down at a table and come up with a plan. And once that plan happens, instead of choosing one of the freebies, which I really am appreciative of, so don't think I'm saying, you know, hey, I don't appreciate it. I liked one more than the other. I like Brenda's plan. You know, more. If I had to vote now, I'd vote that. But okay, there are 6 others besides Lisa Keith up here, and I think the best thing to do is to sit down at a work session whatever time y'all want. I'll stay tonight if y'all want to, and then we vote. That's all I have to say about it.
Lisa, I tell you, the moon and Venus align some kind of way today, because I'm going to agree with you too. And you know that's rare. But since we're in the astronomical sphere, Brenda, really one of the processes, and I think when I think back to a previous board meeting, I made it clear that there is truly a process. You have to also take this before the public. We need to look at it, get the district aligned to our satisfaction, or as close to our satisfaction as we can get it. And we have to take it to the public, and then it goes to the registers or whatever to approve. But I have to agree with Lisa, we kind of need to stay in a process to make sure all voices have had their say on how they would like the districts to look as well as the public.
And thank you for that. I think my issue was that we would take to the public our recommendation, but you're saying we should take both maps that we have?
No, take the one map that we all have agreed on.
And that's what I thought that's what I was saying.
No, you did. You said take both maps.
No. Initially, I said if everybody was ready to take the vote, then we take that vote on a map and take that map then to the public. But we haven't decided on one of the two maps. But I heard Lisa. I heard Lisa very well, and I was not rushing us to vote tonight. My comment was if everybody is ready, because I thought we were here to discuss the three options. As a matter of fact, well, I won't go into that. We have the opportunity to see two maps. If I'm not mistaken, everyone has had that opportunity to visit with both of those consultants, and if not, then they'll let us know as we continue this discussion tonight.
So what do you want to be our next step?
I like the idea that Dr. Keith and I was giving your last name, Erica Smith, aligned on. I'm so glad to say aligned. And Santa Claus is proud. But I think that this needs to be a broader discussion in all seriousness. And once we sit around the table, whether it's a work session or not, a call meeting, then everybody will have a chance to get their opinions out, and we, come up with what we consider a fair proposition for us to take to the public.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we have a work session with maps. Okay? All right.
I'm in agreement.
We got it. We'll have that coming up. Probably at this point, it'll be in January at some point. Is that suitable to everybody? Okay. Next, we have the superintendent's letter of intent.
Okay, thank you. So according to the contract that I have currently, it has a lot of, things in it, like rollovers and notice of intent from either the board or the superintendent to the board, et cetera. So, I've made you all aware that I'm not going to be looking for another rollover or another contract after this one ends on June 30th. Let me say, most of you know that I came for a 6-month interim, and I've been here about 4 years now plus. So I want to take just a little bit of time and read my letter, if you don't mind. It's very short, but I'll read it basically so that it can be heard and put into the record also by the public. Dear board members, it's been my pleasure to serve as superintendent of MPS for the past 4 years. I'm writing this notice to inform you that I do not intend to seek another contract when my term ends June 30th, 2022. Working together as a team has been rewarding, and working through challenges has proven MPS is ready to move forward with its new chapter. At the start of my tenure, MPS was faced with the threat of losing its accreditation. Together, we transformed several key areas of our day-to-day operations, such as our finances, child nutrition program, transportation, and student achievement. We passed the much-needed ad valorem tax that will benefit our schools in many ways. As superintendent, there were several tough decisions that needed to be made, but I'm proud to say MPS is in a much better position. These accomplishments are not minor and require support of the Board of Education, community, Chamber of Commerce, the Mayor and City Council, the Chairman and County Commissioners, the faith-based community, parents, school system employees, and others. Significant strides have been made for MPS, and with the hiring of a strong superintendent and the continued support of the MPS Board of Education, the school system should continue to move forward. I came to Montgomery on a mission, and my mission has been accomplished. I believe that the school system is in the right position to move forward. It was my pleasure to serve this community and the students of Montgomery. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. With that, this meeting is adjourned, and we are now called into session for our regular board meeting. And we still have a quorum here. Can I get an approval of this agenda?
Yes, Madam President, I would love to recommend approving the agenda, but with a pullout from the consent agenda of certified personnel, and I'm only interested in item 61.
So you want to pull?
I do, and I would love more information on that item, and I don't know if that means going into executive session or what, but I got late information on it, and the folder that was placed here, I just had a few questions, and I would like to be able to ask some questions, and I'm not sure that this is the forum for those questions. Yes.
All right, so we're going to pull number 61 out of the folder. Is that correct? Okay, so we'll take an executive.
So do I continue with the agenda or wait?
So go on, I think go on.
Okay.
Get the
Okay.
pull that one out.
Thank you.
We
Thank
also
you.
need to pull
In that case-
D. We need to pull D out of consideration for approval on number 9.
Okay, thank you. Madam President, I move to approve the revised agenda with 2 changes in item 9, personnel report, certified personnel, number 61, and item D, redistricting consultants.
Okay.
I second.
Okay. All in favor with a show of hands? Okay, thank you. All right. In this, just a few remarks here, but in this season, this holiday season filled with family and joy, I would like to take a moment to remember those of our MPS families that we lost during this past year. Teachers, coaches, bus drivers, support staff, and others. So if we could, well, may we take a moment to remember. We will never forget them. You know, I wouldn't be me if I didn't mention some of the great things happening around MPS. I'd like to mention an exciting new development in the partnership between MPS, Ed Farm, MGM Tech, and the City of Montgomery. Right now, MPS teachers are taking part in the New Teacher Fellows program and are receiving new tools and training to introduce students to coding and other high-tech skills. This is a big leap toward STEM learning. Next, I'd like to mention a student who has been recognized nationally. Jaden Amir Robinson of Booker T. Washington Arts Magnet has been named a 2022 Young Arts finalist for his photographic portfolio. This distinguishes him as one of 720 most accomplished young artists in the nation. Of those finalists, 20 will be chosen to receive the U.S. Presidential Scholars in the Arts Award. So congratulations and good luck to Amir. Finally, I want to mention Brew Tech, which hosted its first robotics competition at the school in nearly 2 years. That was pretty exciting in and of itself, but Brew Tech also won 2 of the 4 medals that were awarded in the tournament, including the tournament's highest award. We don't have to look far to find wonderful things happening in our schools. It truly is a new day for MPS. And I would like to now turn the program over to Jade Jones for recognitions.
Alrighty. Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Moore, and board members. It is a pleasure to stand before you tonight as we honor MPS employees that are doing an outstanding job throughout our school system. To get us started tonight, we'd like to call Mrs. Lucy Jackson from Vaughn Road Elementary, if she's here tonight. As she's making her way down, I'll share why she has been nominated. Mrs. Jackson serves as the librarian at Vaughn Road Elementary. Dr. Lindsay, who serves as the principal, shares that Mrs. Jackson is truly a bright star at VRE. She goes on to share that Mrs. Jackson works hard and goes over and beyond to serve the students at Vaughn Road. In addition to being a student favorite, she works hard to keep the staff updated, especially on all things related to media. Let's give Mrs. Jackson another round of applause for encouraging her students to continue to read and be the shining scholars that they are. One second, Scott. Mrs. Jackson, we thank you so much for what you do at Vaughn Road. Thank you. All righty. Well, next up we have, and I hope I say this correctly, Mr. Is it Sabe? Sabe? Oh, sorry. Mr. Sabe Williams, who proudly serves as a custodian for Floyd Middle Magnet. And he's joined here tonight with his principal, Ms. Courtney Giles. And this is an interesting story, and it stood out quite a bit, Mr. Williams, because Ms. Giles says that you do not miss a robocall that she sends out. And if the robocall doesn't make it to your phone, you wait for her to get to the school building and you remind her to push the send button. Is that true? I think you might be out for my job. I'm not sure. Alrighty, Mr. Williams is a proud custodian over at Floyd Middle Magnet. And Ms. Giles says he comes in every single day with a positive attitude and with his Floyd Middle Magnet shirt ready to get the job done. The students love him, the faculty, the PTSA, everyone is so appreciative of the work that you do. So Mr. Williams, thank you so much. Let's give him a round of applause. Hold on, Scott, 1 second. Let's give him this. Thank you so much. Let's give everyone another round of applause for all the great work that they're doing in the system. And Madam President, we do want to thank Baptist Health for supplying us with the gift cards for our employees. Thank you.
Excuse me, Jade.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to, for us, and I know you're excited, for us to recognize the cheerleaders that was in competition last week.
That is absolutely correct. Scott, come up here and join me and remind me. We had 2 schools. Is that not right?
We had more than that.
Scott, go ahead, get to the microphone.
So I know that we had, let's see, who all was? We had Carr, we had Floyd, I think Jeff Davis, and one other.
That one cheer competition, yeah.
That went to the state competition in Birmingham. So
we're really proud of those.
Yeah, we are very proud of that. So
we did share all that information on social.
That's right.
So yes, ma'am. Let's give them a round of applause.
And I think at some point, we typically give out some certificate of recognition to those groups, and we have them to come in.
I think we have that scheduled for January, if I'm not mistaken. Madam President, if that's fine, for January. To recognize those cheer groups. Dr. Moore, Madam President, January. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have scheduled public comments. And I'm required to read this, so bear with me. Public comments. Requests must be made in advance in writing to the superintendent's office by 4:30 on the Tuesday preceding the meeting date. Requests must have specified the nature of the business to be taken up with the board and the name of the person who will address the board to be added to the agenda. Communications must be respectful. Discussing specific student or employee matters will not be allowed. Individuals who have concerns that are inappropriate to be solved in this venue are welcome to seek a problem-solving meeting with the superintendent. Immediate feedback by the board may not be provided. However, you may be contacted for follow-up by the superintendent or designee. Public comments may not exceed 3 minutes. The board chairman has full authority to terminate the remarks of any person whose comments contain personal attacks, exceed the time limit, or are otherwise inappropriate. A speaker may not be considered disruptive who continues to speak when their allotted time has ended, when asked to stop speaking by the board chairman, or is otherwise inappropriate. If a person fails to comply when asked to terminate comments, he or she will be escorted to their seat, out of the auditorium, and or off of MPS property, depending on the level of disruption. And we have comments this evening from Mrs. Jean Charbonneau, one of our favorites, about the superintendent's selection process and public transparency.
Well, I don't know about one of our favorites.
Good evening, Superintendent Moore and Ms. Wheel and the entire board. Merry Christmas and congratulations. Let's start with that. MPS is celebrating a new day, as the billboards, the press, and the video that you released on the 1st of December are declaring. The new day will become a new era as you move forward with selecting the new superintendent, who will hopefully remain in place to cement the progress that you have all worked so diligently to achieve. My remarks tonight are a request, really a plea, on behalf of many in our shared community. While there are many, many metrics for evaluation, the skills, knowledge, experience, and academic credentials on a resume never tell the whole story, nor will these measures reveal if a candidate is a good fit for MPS. On behalf of many magnet school stakeholders, we would like to go on record that you interject specific questions and ascertain explicitly how each candidate feels about choice in public education, i.e., that is, are they supportive of magnet schools and charter schools? Are they actively supportive of magnet and charter schools? As MPS moves toward a new generation of leadership, choice is here to stay, and we cannot remain wedded to past attitudes held, unfortunately, by a few too many senior educators and administrators at MPS who continue to harbor hostility towards magnet schools, education options, and anything other than traditional education models. Please involve magnet and charter school parents and stakeholders in the process. Be transparent. Hold public forums. In the timeline that you outlined, I heard only one date for a public forum, and that's 18 January. That may or may not be enough, particularly if there's not an exchange allowed, even a pre-one where we write questions. But I would include active participation of the community, because there are many, many, many of us out here who care deeply about who the next leader is for MPS, for the next generation. And we appreciate the time and effort that you will put into it and what it will mean for the future. So Merry Christmas. Thank you for your time. And I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, certainly.
Ms. Charbonneau, I know you're leaving, but I want to say this. I tried to think of every question that we could ask when I met with my one-on-one. And I know I believe every one of these board members up there did the same. I'm going to admit that that wasn't one of mine. So I am thankful, because it would be at the top of my charts, that our new superintendent does look at choice. I think you've hit on something that I don't know if between my accident that I've had and that I forgot it, but I am so glad that you showed up, and I can assure you, I've written it down in my phone. I will bring it up.
Thank you very much.
Okay. At this time, this board is going to go into executive session to discuss good name and character. We should be in the executive session no more than 15 minutes. During the executive session, no votes will be taken. So we'll be back in 15. The executive session has been completed. No decisions were made during the meeting. We will now reconvene the board meeting. Dr. Moore, consent agenda.
I recommend approval of the consent agenda.
Do we have a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor with a show of hands? That's unanimous. Dr. Moore?
Okay, under 9, consider for approval on A, personnel report, certified personnel. We're going to pull 61 out and vote on that separately. Otherwise, I recommend approval of the personnel report, certified personnel.
We have a motion?
One quick question, and I may have missed something. Did we vote, before we went in executive session, did we vote on the consent agenda? I'm just making sure.
Pull that down.
Before we went into executive session, did we vote on the consent agenda? That's why I just keeping it on. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm
That's
maybe over here near the Christmas tree or the lights get me. I don't know.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a motion?
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation.
Second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor with a show of hands? That's unanimous.
Okay, so now we're going to have a recommendation that we accept the recommendation for number 61 on the personnel report, certified personnel.
Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for number 61 on the personnel report, certified personnel.
Is there a second? Can I second? I second it. Okay. All of those in favor of the superintendent's recommendation with a show of hands? And those who oppose with a show of hands? Okay. We have
Yeah,
2
2 and
for
1.
and 1 against and 3 abstentions. We don't know. Does that pass? The majority
The majority of the
votes?
ones who voted approved it, correct?
Yes.
Is the bylaws, is it voting, president voting or voting?
Well, 2 abstained, is that correct?
3 abstained.
3 abstentions?
2
So that means your
yeas.
vote doesn't count because you abstained.
Right.
And then 2 voted in favor of and 1 voted
Against.
against?
But don't you have to have a quorum? You have to have 4.
We,
The quorum is the number of people present.
I think this motion passed, but we will double check to make
We'll
sure
double check.
that is correct.
We'll double check it.
Okay.
And then I'll let you know.
All right.
Okay.
Dr. Moore?
All right. I recommend approval of the personnel report, classified personnel.
Is there a motion?
I move approval or acceptance of the superintendent's recommendation for item B, personnel report classified.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor with a show of hands? Unanimous. Dr. Moore?
I recommend approval of the personnel report, certified teams.
Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the superintendent's motion for ratification of personnel reports, certified teams.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor with a show of hands? And that's unanimous. Our next meeting will be January 11th, 2022, 5 o'clock, right here at Carver High School. I hope everybody has a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
I still have real trouble with it. I really don't. I would have to call Tina Davis. Right. But it depends on your guidelines. If our bylaws, and I don't remember, but if the bylaws say present and voting, or if it just says majority of those voting. And I don't think it's in there.
That's what we go back. We run our business back on. I think that's what we have to look at. Anyway, we'll find out. I mean, we know how it went. So.
And you know good and well, I don't want anybody jumping on our children. But like you said, we might not need to know all the gory details.
And that's why the tenure and non-tenure policy is
Well, and I'm sitting here going, if this had been in May, it would be moot. But because January, February, March, April, May, and if you don't let him come back until February, I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll get a legal interpretation of the vote itself. We'll do that.
Good.
And I'll let
That's
you know
the first
what
one.
The legal interpretation of how that vote is, I'll let you know.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
was what I wanted to
Or shouldn't.
I don't think you should, but, if we were in a termination hearing, I would show you the video. Yeah. It's pretty much based on the recommendation, but now, if it gets down to where you really want to see it one at a time, I'll let you see it. But the difference in the law, the way the law is written, between a tenured and a non-tenured person, like at the end, like if you had 100 people go, and that's why most systems let non-tenured people go, because you don't have to tell them why. When you start telling people why, then you got to be able to prove that. In this case, we could prove it because of the video. But